Joining us now to review some of the headlines of today's newspapers from around the world is Arise News analyst Emmanuel Efeni. Good morning, Emmanuel.
Good morning, Ruben. Good morning, Tunde.
Good morning, Mr. Efeni.
Good morning, Leila. Let's start with these day newspapers. The lead story: in landmark agreement, U.S. to return $308 million Abacha assets for infrastructure. Praises Buhari for fight against corruption. Yes, that amount will be coming back to the country for specific projects according to the agreement signed by all parties. Now, Ruben, you seem not to be comfortable with the terms and conditions given to Nigeria as a country. Not only the project, they want to be sure
it's not stolen.
It's not stolen again.
Yeah, no, I didn't express any kind of objection. Yes, and I was saying...
It's so embarrassing.
Well,
honestly,
why
we're just puppets
it's
at this
embarrassing?
point. It is embarrassing.
Because if the minister said there is victory for Nigeria.
No, it is. It's great to have the money back, but we cannot ignore the fact that we're being treated like children. Yeah. I find it really
embarrassing. See, the whole idea of corruption.
It's justified, but it's embarrassing. Yeah. I never said it's not justified.
Despite the vigorous anti-corruption fight, there's still this notion that if care is not taken,
it'll be stolen
something
again.
can go awry.
And that's
about this.
Which we all know. There's no argument about that. So, but we should be embarrassed as a nation that this is how we are perceived.
Well,
exactly.
I would like to draw attention to something. I mean, I talked about the rewards and sanctions plans of the U.S. foreign policy process. But I think that here, in the statement that was made, Nigeria, the Buhari administration was commended for its anti-corruption efforts. And the United States authorities also expressed their readiness to continue to support the fight against corruption in Nigeria. And, I imagine that maybe in the course of this week, before the week runs out, the spin doctors in Nassau Villa are going to play that up seriously to say, look, this is a statement that was made by the U.S. In comparison to the recent assessment by Transparency International, an assessment that was rejected by the federal government. But you see, the point there is that even while it is a good thing that the American authorities made a statement about President Buhari's efforts, the government should be prepared at all times to take both praise and criticism.
Yeah,
exactly. Because oftentimes it looks like when a positive thing is said, we are excited. When a negative thing is said, we become really intolerant.
We like to beat
but Ruben,
our
is that not the
chest
nature
far too
of
much.
you people when you are in government?
Yeah.
No, this is not about me. I'm analyzing what is before us.
No, but when you are in government, if you are in government, you will do same thing.
No, you are not sure.
You play up the positive. So it's normal. Because to be fair to our colleagues who are in government, you were once in government. That is the job they have to do. Their job is not to criticize government.
I'm not condemning them.
No, I'm
just making an observation.
It's not a matter of putting spin. It's what the right thing to do. When government gets positive outing, then you play it up.
Well, but in any case, I think the other good side of this is the fact that the projects to be targeted have been identified. The Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, which has been under construction or rehabilitation.
Since I was a kid.
For
not
a long time.
It was sometime in 2014 that
the second
President
Bridge.
Goodluck Jonathan revoked the concession given to Bicotney. They were not making any progress and awarded the contract properly.
I mean, the whole thing was politicized at that time. Also because Nigeria, at a point, didn't have enough experience in concessioning. But in any case, what is important is to complete that expressway. And also the second Niger Bridge, which has been identified, and also the Abuja-Kano expressway. The third point, which we have referred to twice, is the fact that the money is going to be domiciled with the Sovereign Investment Authority as part of the Sovereign Investment Fund and not in any known or unknown piggy bank, in the corridors of government. Because the NSIA has shown, a capacity to be able to invest funds. And more funds for the NSIA may well be in the overall interest of Nigeria.
Okay, let's move on to other stories. The Nigerian Tribune Buhari writes Christianity Today, says, religion can't divide Nigerians. 90% Boko Haram victims are Muslims. Praises Andimi, his church, for their works in northeastern region. Daily Independent has similar story. 90% of Boko Haram victims are Muslim, Buhari tells Khan. Federal government not averse to Khan's protest presidency, while the Vanguard newspaper, similar story, insurgency, 90% of Boko Haram victims are Muslims, says President Buhari in article published in U.S. magazine. Adds slain pastor and the misfit should inspire all Nigerians. No multi-stakeholder survey to prove president's assertion. That's Khan. Why Christians are now targets of deadly terror attacks investigation. Now, yes, that article, putting figures, is what I don't find very comforting.
That's what I don't get either. 90% just chucked in there as if you have the stats and the facts.
And a number, some people can make some insinuations from this. Are you saying Christians, only 10% should not make so much noise because 90% of Muslims are the ones being killed? I think the handlers of the president should have just stayed out of this figure thing.
The statistics and the other issue
it's enough to say that Boko Haram killed both Muslims and Christians alike. I don't know why they delve into figures.
Even if it's 95%,
it's far from
it doesn't help to deny the obvious, which is that when Christians are killed, it's in a particularly sensationalized, gruesome, gory way. And that is not accidental. That is an attack on people's rights.
Targeted.
Yes.
So we shouldn't quibble about that
for their religion.
First, let's contextualize this. Why would the president of Nigeria write an article in an American magazine? One question. And I think that the reason, and what type of U.S. magazine, American magazine, a magazine that is titled Christianity Today.
An evangelical magazine.
So you will recall that, in the past few weeks, Nigerians, the leadership of the Redeemed Church, led by Pastor Adeboye, and then the leadership of the Christian Association of Nigeria, protested on the streets of Lagos, Ekiti, and Ondo. Before then, the Christian Association of Nigeria had been protesting that, look, Christians were being targeted. The Catholic Church, the Catholic priests, including the Bishop of Sokoto, had cause to speak up, and including Cardinal Nayekan, to say that, look, Nigeria is no longer a safe place for Christians. So, and then you had that statement from the U.S., putting Nigeria on watch as a place for religious persecution, targeting particularly Christians. So you now have the president of Nigeria going to the same territory in a Christian magazine in the United States to say that this is not true. It is everybody that is targeted in Nigeria. And in the article, it calls for unity and all of that. So it's a strategic move. But I agree with you, the point about the statistics, they in fact achieved the opposite objective of even annoying Nigerian Christians.
The fact that they threw in a stat.
But whether those persons who have been killed are Christians or Muslims, nobody should be killed.
Exactly.
Nigerians must be safe, whatever the faith that they profess. But of course, the Christian Association of Nigeria has condemned the position of the president to say that it is not true. But we hope that the article also will be reproduced fully, as has been done in news reports, in Nigerian newspapers and on other platforms.
Yes, but if something that should be cherished to Nigerians, if you will, Daily Trust, Chibok girls sighted at Sambisa Forest, abductors ready for negotiation, sources. Yes, after 6 years in captivity, this should, bring some cheery news to parents of those girls who are still in captivity. That according to a girl who was abducted 11 months ago but regained her freedom on Sunday, February 2nd, 2020, she told one of her Daily Trust correspondents that she saw some of the Chibok girls in Sambisa Forest recently. Well,
we've had reports like this before.
Today marks the 2,125 days of these girls in captivity.
This occasional sighting of the Chibok girls is almost becoming an astrological exercise. I think that what Nigerians are continuing to ask for is those girls to be rescued.
Exactly.
Chibok girls, the remaining Dapchi girls, and for us to have, an environment, a security environment, whereby nobody will be abducted or kidnapped or murdered, whether in the northern part of the country or any other part of the country. That is what is at the heart of the security challenge in Nigeria.
True, I agree with you, but this should also bring some cheering news to the parents, that these girls are well and alive, they are somewhere. And
but it better
the
not be
addition
false
is
hope.
that they are ready to negotiate sources.
It just better not be false hope. That's just...
Now, let's move on to the foreign newspapers outside the shores of Nigeria. The Guardian, UK. Get out if you can. The warning to 30,000 Britons still in China. Yes, the Foreign Secretary, Dominic Raab, gave that advisory to about 30,000 Britons who are still in China, especially in the Wuhan area, that where there's still British nationals in Hubei province who wish to be evacuated, we will continue to walk around to check the clock to facilitate that. Juxtapose that with the attitude in the House of Representatives yesterday, when the issue of to repatriate, to bring back Nigerians, and they did not even want to discuss the matter.
It was disgusting, frankly.
So, but this British, because of the increasing risk, according to the Foreign Secretary, that those Britons who are ready to come back, they will do everything to bring them back.
To add to the Nigerian side of it that you brought up, there was a story in the papers today saying that the Nigerians in Wuhan North have not asked to be evacuated.
Probably because they don't feel like
we had raised the question, do they have to request for evacuation?
Exactly.
Even whether or not they're repatriated or not, at least with the House of Reps, listen to the motion. They were laughing, dismissing it. I was so disgusted.
It was embarrassing.
If it was any of your relatives
said they are better
that
off
would
in
be
China.
there. Yeah. If it was your relatives.
Yeah, that's what they said.
No, it was disgusting.
It was honestly just embarrassing.
And they were laughing. What is funny?
Honestly, we're talking about a new strain
of... I was so disgusted. This is why nobody respects you.
Honestly, well put.
Well, thank you very much, Emmanuel Efeni. We'll see you tomorrow morning.
We sure will.